Hi, it's Winton Churchill, and I'd like to welcome you to our Friday question and answer. We're in our using our StreamYard system today. We're going to be trying out a few new features, and if you can hear me okay and see me okay, if you just want to type that into the chat window, that would be great. You could just type that in. Greg, good. First time here. Great. Welcome. Good to see you. And let's see, Pam. Very good. Pam. Yes, Pam, I sent you a link that you into your email that you will want to click to come in on our StreamYard. So that's what you want to do. Uh, good. Okay. Yes, and thanks for that. Glad you can see and hear everything. But if you could go ahead and click in on that link, and I'll have you kind of in the waiting room here so that we're connected, because you have to go through that StreamYard link there. So we're going to be talking today about some of the questions that we had on our Tuesday night call that we didn't quite get to. And thanks, Greg. Glad the audio is coming through, and Monica, I think, is going to be joining us also. I see Pam, you're coming through. It'll take a minute. You might have to do some settings on your Google Chrome. Usually is what there's a security setting or two, and there's Robert booming in from Roatan. Good to see you today. Hope you're having good weather there. I'm sure it's usually almost always nice in Roatan. So that's cool. And let's see here. Okay, great. All righty. Cindy, how you doing? Good to see you. Cindy and I talked during the week, and we had a lot of fun there. So good to see you on the call. All righty, we're given just a few moments to get set up here. Yeah, Greg is saying that the audio is clearer than on the Tuesday night call. Yeah, actually, it's a technical reason. A lot of times in the Tuesday night call, we've got between 70 and 150 people on that call, and basically they have to take the signal and spread it out to more people. And on this call, we have a lot more people that watch this call after we do it. They watch the recording of it than they watch it live. And excellent. Okay. Yeah. So Greg, I see you want to do audiobooks, and yeah, it does. You do have to live in a place where you can have a conversation and do recording at full voice. Very important, and not get complaints from the neighbors or barking dogs or police sirens. Where I live right now, I happen to be right next to a fire department who very much appreciated when they roar out of the fire station, which is not very often, thankfully. They don't blare their sirens until they get, it seems like, about a block or two away, because they are right in a residential area. And yes, I'm sympathetic to your comment there about lots of noise in the Dominican. One of the things, let me see if I can show this, because there's some foam sound baffling that I used when I was doing some recording. That's relatively inexpensive, for setting up. And let me just pop this up here and see if I can make it visible to everybody on the call. Let's see here. StreamYard. So this sound baffling is a good thing to share with you, because it saved my bacon one time. Let me get into the Chrome tab. Um, and it's relatively inexpensive. It's like tiles that you just put on the wall. So for 16.95, you get a 4-pack of these, and you can see here there's different. They're just foam cut in different shapes. And if you can get in a studio, I actually did some recordings one time in a walk-in closet, and they turned out very well. I mean, you couldn't hear them. You couldn't tell the difference between something that was recorded in a studio. I mean, probably an audio engineer could, but it was acceptable enough for what I was doing and sounded very good. And so this acoustic foam is something. Let me see if I can pop this link in the chat window here and get you going on that. Let me get back here and we'll set, and now you can upload this stuff or order it from Amazon, and they ship internationally a lot, and so that's a good thing. And so Pam, I see that you're in the room here. Let me just test out how you doing today?
I'm doing well.
All right, very good. All right, we got some questions coming up. We'll be getting into those. I'm getting a little bit of background noise on your end. I think you need to use headphones on so that, because it's coming out of your speaker and coming into it. So let me give you just a moment to get those set up, and we'll let me get my question spreadsheet set up, and with as many people as we have on our Tuesday night call, we get some things that we don't have time to answer. So this is evolved into a great place to answer some of those questions. And we had one question. Somebody say, may I assume freelancers receive timely wage documentation for tax purposes? And yes, in the worldwide networks, when you sign up, you're putting in either your personal tax ID or a business tax ID, what's called an employee, EIN. I'm not sure what that stands. It's employee something number. And that's one of the great things about these things is it really simplifies accounting for freelancers. And this is one of the new things that, as a freelancer is getting started, you don't want to have to think about how to set up your whole accounting system. And that's one of the advantages of these networks, is that you're able to have all that information collected in the network for you and have it easily accessible. And this saves many hours of dealing with things at tax time. Let's see. Yeah, I see Greg says if he's here much longer, you use egg crates. Yes, I have heard of people using, they just take an egg, the cardboard box, if you will, that a dozen eggs come in, and they open that up and just tack that on the wall. And that is another way to do that. So Pam, I think we got you back in here. And so yeah, how are we doing there? Is it?
I'm doing fine. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah.
This is our first time on this, and there's 25 different.
There's a lot
you have to do.
Yeah, I was talking to Monica just before we started, and I said, if you're gonna, when you're using new features now, you're it's what's the saying? If you're going to make an omelet, you have to break a few eggs, and that's kind of where we are on this. Is that you kind of just there's no way to do it other than do it, and sometimes it looks a little awkward. So there we go. So Pam, I'm going to pop up some of our questions that we went over yesterday,
Okay.
and may get some of your thoughts on.
I would, while you're doing that, say one thing about the
Sure.
reporting that you spoke of. You can get that reporting anytime you want it. You don't have to wait for tax season. You can go in and run a report once a month, and it will show you exactly all the jobs you did and who it was with and all the tax information that you need. So you don't have to wait till tax season to do it. You can sort of plan your year as you go if you want to.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it helps you plan, obviously, as a freelancer. Most freelancers that got started in the last 30 years use the shoebox method of accounting, where they got a shoebox, and every time they sold something, they printed it off, and they printed off the invoice and put it in their shoebox, and then they take their shoebox into their accountant and say, here's everything. Well, of course, that's not a very good way to operate, and a lot of times just even the it's easy to miss maybe a big piece of revenue that you didn't anticipate, and that's the good thing about all these online systems, is that is basically they're available for you anytime. So as you're going through the year and you want to understand how much taxes you want to be paying, because when you are earning as a freelancer, many freelancers choose to make quarterly payments throughout the year so they don't get one giant surprise at the end of the year. It's a great way to keep up with that, and a great way to be able to have a conversation with your accountant. In fact, you can download that information in a spreadsheet format, and you can send that to your accountant. So it makes it easier for them to keep the backup detail and do any calculations they might need to do on it, that kind of thing. Let's see. Good point. Okay. So this is one question we got. Do you need a U.S. address? This is a person that's thinking of moving overseas. And the first thing I want to say is kind of a disclaimer, is that we don't give legal advice, and we don't give accounting advice, and we don't give financial advice, but we talk about best practices sometimes. What is it that people do? And certainly many people in our program, I think I added it up one time, we have people that live in something like 48 different countries that are in our programs. So lots of different tax jurisdictions and that kind of thing. And the big networks that we talk about are internationally oriented, and they do comply with international tax rules for reporting and that kind of thing. So you can live anywhere just about and do this stuff, so you can do that. The way that most people that say live in the US or Canada is they set this up in their own country before they leave the country. If they're traveling, which is, we're in the pandemic now, not a lot of people are traveling, but certainly as soon as it comes off, we'll start traveling again. And you set this up, you have your funds deposited in your country of citizenship. So for all practical purposes, what accountants refer to as the locus of your business is in your home country. The minute you go to another country that you're not a citizen of, you can potentially trigger a tax situation because you're receiving money in their currency and you're working in their country. Working as an online freelancer avoids a lot of that because in a funny sort of way that an accountant explained it to me, is your business is where you establish your business. It doesn't depend on where you are. So if a automotive executive in Detroit for a major auto manufacturer comes down to one of the plants they have in Mexico and spends a month down there, they're not considered, for tax purposes, a Mexican citizen. So you want to talk to your accounting or legal person or immigration person about that when you have that conversation about setting up your business. But it's not a big deal to do that. It's easy to do. This is how millions of people that do this stuff around the world work with it. And I've had people tell me from time to time that, well, I'm moving to Ecuador and I really want to have my money in Ecuador, and I don't want to have my money in the United States or whatever. And that's not a good approach from a tax standpoint and an income standpoint and that kind of thing. You have much more complication as a U.S. citizen. In particular, you have to file tax reports on your worldwide income, and then if you start working in a foreign country, you have to comply with all their laws and filing tax returns there. So after 13 years of doing this, you could choose to swim upstream, but it's a lot of wasted energy to do that, because I considered doing that at some time. What if I moved all my banking and all my whatever to Panama? And I looked into it. My accountant said it would, tremendous cost to comply with the reporting and all that kind of stuff. So not something you want to do. You want to do this the easy way of keeping your bank account in your home country where you're a citizen, and that gives you the freedom to go out anywhere. And I know quite a number of freelancers that I talk to that have come through our program that, because of the pandemic right now, they're living in a different place. They may have moved from where the country they were in to a different country for a variety of reasons. Maybe they have family there. Maybe it's easier to travel in and out, just lots of different things. And so that's just what's happened. And so they have to look at their accounting situation and that kind of thing all over again. So a couple different wrinkles to pay attention to there. Let's see, what other questions do we have on the list here? Let's see, what about job postings that say they're looking for new freelancers to do an easy job at a low fixed price, $10 usually, and promise to give a review to get you going? I applied for one of those 2 weeks ago and later realized it was likely not legitimate. Yes, anytime somebody is sort of, you want to think of jobs on these networks as just kind of classified jobs in the newspaper. Anybody basically can post a job. Upwork and Freelancer and Guru and all these networks have very sophisticated sort of fraud detection. If they detect somebody that's doing something not quite right, they usually find them and pull them off the system. But sometimes it can take a few days to a week for them to figure out somebody's doing something they shouldn't be doing. And so, yes, if it sounds too good, or if somebody is promising to give you a rating, that's kind of a bribery situation. You're encouraging the idea of saying something good about somebody because they're giving you free work, and this is the kind of thing you want to avoid. So a couple things to do to avoid this kind of thing, and we really don't see it a lot. This is not something that everybody is running into every day, and because of the fraud prevention things that catch a lot of this stuff before it ever gets published. But the hardest thing to deal with is the new freelance buyer that comes on to the system and post a job and might offer a job like this, and it might take them a few days to realize that that this is not a legitimate freelancer. So what we recommend is on every network, you can see how long the person has been on the network. And, there's no hard and fast rule, but if they've been on the network for 3 months, 6 months and above, there's probably a pretty good bet that it's a legitimate job. If it sounds too good to be true and they've been on the network for 2 weeks, it probably is. So you just want to exercise a little judgment the same way that you'd exercise a judgment if you got a letter in your postal box or your email box that said, I'm the former Crown Prince of Nigeria, and I need to transfer $100 million out, and I'll give you $1 million of it if you'll help me. And then they get you into a conversation about passing along your bank account numbers. I mean, you'd never do something like that. And the same applies here. You can't, remove your vigilance. But the good news in all these networks, there's a screening process that goes through for people that come onto the networks. There's a screening process that's ongoing about, are they doing any behavior suspiciously and that sort of thing. So it's a pretty safe place to do business. Let's see here. Get to another one of these. Yeah, here's one. Somebody's asking about the length of proposals and saying that they used to write proposals in it looks like sort of for a defense contractor for government RFPs, and they wanted us to talk a little bit about the length of proposals. And Pam, you want to talk a little bit about that? About proposals being a little bit different?
Yes. Well, having worked in a high-tech industry for most of my career, I too was accustomed to proposals being thousands of pages long and very detailed. So you have to think of a proposal as something quick that fixes the problem for the client. The client described what the issue is in 3 or 4 sentences, so you do not need to write an extremely long proposal. It's generally 250 words, somewhere in there. It can be a little shorter, can be a little longer, but the 7-step process that we teach you on how to write proposals will say, step 1, identify the client if you can. Step 2, repeat back to them what you're going to do for them so they know that you read that proposal and that you understand what they are asking you to do. But I'm not going to go through all 7 steps right now, but it is very short. Once you write a few of these, you can probably write a proposal in 20 minutes. So it's not a difficult process that you have to fret over. I know the first couple that I did, it probably took me a half a day because I'd worry about it. I'd write a sentence, I'd get up, I'd go get a drink, I'd come back. It's not that difficult. Print the checklist that we give you and put it right beside you on your desk and just go step by step through it. And remember that it's written in the same style of what your proposal is. It's not about you. Don't talk about, I've done this in the past, I've done that. Talk to the client and let them know what you can do that will satisfy their needs. Just like you did in the profile, where you write from the perspective of the client.
Good. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, very good. And I see that Greg is in the chat, has said, let's see, that he's got a Canadian account, and I see David Foley there that's saying the same thing. So there, everything stays in Canadian money, and everything goes to their Canadian address. And so yes, that's what works for folks. So a good thing to know. And I see that Doug Tiffany is checking in from Hawaii. Always good to see Doug on these calls where it's I don't know, it's got to be 6 o'clock in the morning or something like that out there. Can you imagine working in Hawaii? That's
I
is that
did
really?
for 6 weeks, and I
Oh,
almost killed
really?
myself because
Yeah.
I never went to bed.
Yes.
I
Yes.
was just like, oh gosh.
Yeah. I used to go there for government conferences. They
Yeah.
had this conference that I want to say had 1,000 people at it in January, and of course, everybody in Washington D.C. is ready to go to Hawaii in January and have their government employer pay for it. And it was a very popular conference. I never quite understood it, and I would go to the conference went to it over a number of years, and one year I was living in a cold place and went to that conference in a warm place and said, now I realize why this is so popular. So very good. All righty. Yes, and look out for the lava. Yeah. Although when it's funny that when you see you see the news, and we're all kind of getting this now. You see the volcano erupting and lava flowing, and looks like massive devastation, but it's really a tiny percentage of the land mass. And of course, the same thing's going on with these fires. When I lived in California, there'd be people saying, "Oh my God, do you need to evacuate? And is it close to you?" And that kind of thing. And in most places I lived, you never even saw the fire, and most of the time you never saw the smoke. They're fairly localized, but it does look pretty bad. But I will say that we evacuated one time also, so that's not like you don't need to pay attention and take care when those things are bumping around out there. Okay, good. All right, let me get some more questions here. Let's see. Here's one that talks about how do we find the words for experience in our lives. Going through the course material, I've hit a roadblock for what seems to be like a very limited set of skills that I have. Is that normal? And yes, the answer is it's completely normal. Pam and I have over the years gone to our conferences. Up until the lockdown, we were doing at least 6 conferences a year. So in essence, every 2 months, getting on a plane and going somewhere and talking to 200 to 500 people, more or less, over a 3 or 4 day period of time. And the number one question we get is, what can I possibly do? And I think this person is particularly talking about in their non-career life, because certainly we have people that, for a variety of different reasons, did not work for a period of time, and so they feel like they don't have any current skills. And just if we put aside the career skills for a moment, another place that we find skills is in your volunteer work. It doesn't mean that you necessarily have to be doing this now, but have you ever volunteered to help raise money for a charity? Or have you ever volunteered to organize an event? Or have you ever volunteered to do the church newsletter or write articles for the church newsletter? Those are places that we tend to find skills that people have that they say, "Oh yeah, I forgot. I know how to do that." And the other thing that we look for, and we see this a lot. I was talking to a woman recently that was a stay-at-home mom. Kids are off to college and beyond, and she wanted to work online and said, "Gee, I've been out of the, basically out of the workforce for 20 years and I have no idea what I can do. And I started off by saying, well, tell me a little bit about how you use your computer. And she went on to say, well, I do some research because I'm interested in this hobby, so that's one skill, doing research online. And a second, what we would call a domain of knowledge, would be her knowledge of her hobby. She was into bird watching, and so she knew a whole lot about birds than you and I know, and so that's a way to kind of combine what you're interested in and something that you're good at, and put that into something. And then she mentioned that she had worked for a corporation before she became a stay-at-home mom, and she had done a lot of PowerPoint. Well, the good news is that PowerPoint hasn't changed a whole heck of a lot, and I'm sure there's people at Microsoft that might disagree with me, but it still works pretty much the way it used to work 25 years ago when I first started using it. And so if you know how to use PowerPoint, that can come back pretty fast. And if you were in a corporate environment for 5, 10, 15 years, and then went into stay-at-home mom or whatever, you would pick up that PowerPoint skill pretty fast. And there's two sides to it. One is knowing what buttons to push and how to make the screen look like you want. But a more important button is knowing how to communicate an idea. What comes first, what comes second, what comes third. And a lot of people looking for help with their presentations are looking for that kind of thing. And somebody that had, 5 years experience 15 years ago doing PowerPoint is in many cases an excellent resource for them to tap into. So that's how we look. We look to volunteer things. We look for hobbies. If you were a photographer like I was in my early 20s, in fact, that's really my first freelance job. I know a lot about photography. And I made the transition, I would say, as a civilian. I mean, from the time I was a freelance photographer in my 20s, I then got into sort of the computer and electronics field. And that was my career, was basically in computers, software, that kind of thing. But then as I left that career and moved to Mexico about 14 years ago now, I got to take pictures again. And of course, all this digital stuff has come along. And so I had to completely learn how to do digital photography. So even though I never had the job title photographer, except when I was in my 20s, or I didn't have any, certainly even back then, did not have any experience with working as a photographer in digital. Everything back then was, you did it with chemicals and dark rooms and things like that. And so kind of in my personal life, to take snapshots of family things and that kind of stuff, learned a lot about the new digital system. So I was able to bring that now back into my work. So that may be a potential hidden skill that you have. And Pam, I'm going to throw it to you. What are your thoughts on that in terms of uncovering hidden skills?
Well, I would like to make a recommendation that you do this over a period of time. Because if you sit down and spend 20 minutes writing down all your skills, you think, oh, well, I didn't do all that much. Well, I promise you, if you're 50, 60 years old, you've done a lot. You just have lumped them all under one job and not think about skills that it took to do that job, not the job itself. So I would recommend that you do this over a period of time and think about it, step away from it. Winton and I was on a call the other day with a lady talking about her career. And as we were getting ready to end the call, she went, oh, I forgot. I used to manage and edit a magazine. Well, that's a pretty important skill, but it just didn't come to her because it wasn't top of mind. So you'll find things like that if as you give it time to marinate a little bit. So think about your skills. Don't think about your job, and that'll help you a lot.
Yeah, that's a great point. And there's not a baby boomer on the planet that you can't find something on the order of a dozen to 2 dozen skills they actually have. You know, we
Yeah.
tend to think about who we are as our occupation now, or not having an occupation now, and that's not it at all. You know, we went to college maybe, and maybe we didn't get a degree, but maybe you know, if you've had 2.5 years in an English program, you know a lot more about English and grammar than most people on the planet. So you know that can be a valuable skill. The people that are working on these networks are not looking for the person that has the greatest set of skills. They're not looking for the best proofreader in the world. They're looking for somebody who's a good proofreader that knows a little something about their subject matter, and so that's really what we're going for there. Okay, let's see.
And I would also recommend that you write down all skills, even if you don't want to do a skill anymore. Let's say you were an accountant and said, I don't ever want to do another Excel spreadsheet the rest of my life. Write it down, because that's going to give your brain something else to think about, and it may bring something else to you. You don't have to do it, but just, give yourself credit that you know more than you think you do.
Yes, and think about the last times that you used an Excel spreadsheet, and maybe in the last year you built 100 Excel spreadsheets in your work, but you also, again, may have helped a charity build a spreadsheet, may have helped a family member that has a certain kind of business build a spreadsheet, or that kind of thing. And that's what, the kind of thing we're looking for. When I left corporate America, I would have been happy to never look at the PowerPoint program ever again. And, after about 6 months or a year, I started informally helping some people figure out how to do this work online stuff. This is going back, gosh, about 15 years ago now. And I found it was easier for me to get some of the concepts, because some of them are a little abstract, into a presentation so that I could go over it with them on the phone. And I found that I really enjoyed talking about this topic and putting together PowerPoint presentations for this topic, where I didn't so much enjoy that, when I was, working for some of the companies I work with. There's only so many ways you can explain how a database works, or how a computer works, or that kind of thing. So yeah, that's it. All right, take another look at our questions here. Let's see. Okay, here's a good question. When you bid on an online job without knowing what the client wants to pay, is it appropriate to say you're flexible in case your bid is considered too high? I don't know. That's one to think about. There's a strategy that we recommend in our program that I'll share now on this call, is that the system that we mostly teach on is called Upwork. And with the Upwork system, you can go in and set up as a freelancer for free. But if you pay $15 a month, one of the benefits of that is you get to see the bidding range on jobs. So if somebody posts a job and people start bidding at it, you can see what the high, the low, and the mid range is on that job. And generally what we recommend is not to sound like you'll be completely flexible and you'll do this for for nothing, just for the chance to work because you're a new person and all that kind of stuff. Although we see a lot of people before they get to our program, they think that's how you get business. It's as freelance buyers see that kind of thing every day. What we suggest that you do is that you do pay the $15 when you're first getting started. It's $15 a month. And so in a typical scenario, a lot of people would be starting, and in the first 2 or 3 months of getting started there, and you're looking at bids and things to bid on, that gives you a pretty good invitation of, I go off the road if I go this way, and I go off the road if I go that way. And as you start, you would typically bid between 10 and 20% below the mid-range, so that gives you an idea what you want to do. You want to do this only on very simple jobs. You never want to do that on a job that had that was $1,000 or something like that, because you may be missing something as you're getting started. And I had one member that came into our program, and her second job was a $3,000 job. And she was ecstatic, of course, and she did the $3,000 job, and it took her about a month to do, with the back and forth with the client. And when she gave submitted the job and asked for payment at the end, the freelance buyer said, well, you haven't provided so-and-so. There was just one line in the original job description that said that you would provide X. It was actually a data field in some data this person was collecting. It was kind of a research job. And so she had to go back and look at every one of those things that she'd researched and find that piece of data and add it back in. And on a $3,000 job, she basically had to redo a significant part of it. So she, it was all her time. She still made the $3,000, and the client was still happy in the end, but she was frustrated because in her excitement, she had overlooked an aspect of the job and wound up having to pay for it. So not too crazy about that.
Let me just add one thing. You were talking about the paid account. For people who are new to this and don't know about it, you can stop and start that payment however often you want to. Our goal is to eventually find 4 or 5 clients that are repeat clients, so that you don't have to go out and find a new job every time you complete one. You've got steady workflow coming in. And if that's the case, then you can certainly drop the paid account because you're not looking for jobs. But when you are actively bidding on jobs, that's when we recommend that you go ahead and buy it.
Yep, good. Very good. Okay, let's see here. Here's an interesting question. Are there any days that are better than others for searching for jobs on Upwork? And that's an interesting question. I mean, behavioral research people know that, different people do things at different times. And there seems to be on Mondays, more people sort of initiate their week and they get started on projects that they haven't, that may just be starting for them. So they're out looking for freelancers to do part of it. And I know that in the past, I have seen some slowness in the system on Mondays and on Fridays, maybe when people are trying to kind of wrap up details and seeing if they can't finish up a job, or at least get the finishing steps lined up so that the job gets finished in the following week. But it's a 24-hour system, and it's a worldwide system. And one of the things that new freelancers don't realize in this system is that there are people from countries all around the world that want to do business in the English-speaking world. And it's a 24-hour-a-day business, and there's jobs being posted, basically every hour of the day in those systems. There's approximately, I think it was 16,000 jobs, new jobs opened every day, between 10 and 16,000 jobs open every day on the Upwork system, I think is the statistic that I remember. And so there's just lots of new stuff coming into the system hour after hour. And one of the things that kind of relates to that question is when you search for jobs, particularly on the Upwork system, you can select U.S. freelancers or U.S. jobs only, or let's see, how would, yeah, I would think that would be how it is. Jobs that are uh, jobs that require U.S. only freelancers, I guess, is the selection that you're making. And we suggest that you not turn that on. You want to be looking at jobs from around the world because you have a skill if this is your skill, and if you live in the U.S., Canada, UK, Australia, and a number of other places, you have English as your native language, and that English is the language of business, and that is very much in demand around the world. So you, like one of our members, might be asked to help a Japanese automotive executive put together a PowerPoint presentation they're going to deliver in English. They speak English, but it's not their native language, and they want some help to make sure their idioms are correct and it's something that a U.S. audience would understand and that kind of thing. So lots of work in that realm, and you can tap into your expertise, and stuff that seems pretty simple for you is extremely valuable for somebody whose English skills are not great and they have to do business in the English speaking world. And I just see that Randy popped in. Good to see you, Randy. Welcome. All right. Let's see here. Yes, and one of the things that somebody asked for on our call, because at the end of our Tuesday night call for our freelance members, somebody asked us to show more examples of cover letter responses for jobs. So we'll be starting that not this coming week, but in 2 weeks. So we really appreciate that kind of feedback. Tell us the kinds of things that you want to see, and we're happy to weave that into our material that we cover on our Tuesday night calls. Let's see here. So here's a question about gaining confidence. How do I gain confidence doing this? And one of the most important things that I like to recommend is just start on small jobs. Start on $25 jobs, $50 jobs, things that you could, just about do in your sleep. That would be, that's a great place to start. The inclination for many people is to go in to these sites and try to tackle a really beefy job. And the problem with that is that you're new to the network. You don't have any job success score. You don't have any 4 and 5-star ratings and that kind of thing. So that's the hardest job to get. And the more money it is, the more the buyer is going to want to make sure you're the right person. And one of the real values they find on these networks is the fact that every freelance buyer that you've worked with before has probably given you, or most everyone has probably given you a star rating, and many have left comments on what it's like to work for you. And in the case of most freelancing situations, the comments are good and the ratings are good. And we talk about how to make sure they are good in our programs and on our Tuesday night call. But that's the general idea. And so the threshold of what do I do if something goes wrong in the mind of the freelance buyer is a whole lot easier if they've assigned a job that's going to take you an hour and it cost them $25. If it turns out that you don't do the job very well, they haven't lost much. But if it turns out that you did do the job well, they now have a resource that they will want to give typically increasingly larger projects to work on as they discover what your background is, what your experience is, and that sort of thing. Most freelance buyers on networks are not in there looking for a one-shot freelancer. They're looking to find somebody that they can rely on a regular basis, on an ongoing basis. And this is a way of interviewing. And you think about what this means. You know, when I was in Los Angeles and the company I worked for would want me to hire more people for the department that I had, or that kind of thing, you know, we would put an ad out, you know, do a variety of different things over time. And people would come into my office and they would bring their resumes and I would talk to them. Well, the great thing about this is that companies are able to draw on worldwide talent. You know, you don't have to rely on somebody being able to drive up to your building. And this is a tremendous game changer. And I was talking to somebody recently that said, you know, gee, I don't know if I could do that. I'm really looking for somebody that works in the local area and can drive, you know, who can be in the office. And, you know, that is kind of dinosaur thinking. You know, we don't live in that world anymore. If you're going to remain competitive as a business, and this is from the freelance buyer perspective, you've got to go out and compete in the world because it's a much bigger pool for people that know how to do certain things, rather than narrow your pool down to people that live within driving distance of your office building. And so this is, you know, it favors freelancers, because this whole idea of remote work is just something that is not going to go away. And the pandemic is just crushing the idea of going into an office building. And, you know, certainly wish the pandemic never occurred. On the flip side, the silver lining for freelancers and remote workers is this means there's a lot more work today that you can do from home or wherever you want to be than there was before the pandemic started. And that trend is not going to turn around. You know, I'm not seeing, in fact, I was in Singapore 3 years ago and I was talking to a real estate agent, and he was explaining Singapore's got a dramatic kind of office building skyline. And he said, you know, that the newer buildings are fully rented out, but the older buildings, they really have a lot of trouble renting those out, because now people in Singapore, rather than commuting into the downtown area every day, are able to work from home because they have the network. You know, it used to be you had to go into the office because that's where the computer was, that's where the network was. You know, you couldn't get high enough speeds from working at home, or the service wasn't reliable, or in many cases you couldn't even get it. And now all that has changed. And that was a trend that had already made pretty good progress in our societies around the world. And now this is just pushing it ever faster into the sort of the way that we do business. I talked to one person who works for a company in New York City, and they're letting employees back into the building, and I think they were capped at 50%. They could only have 50% of the employees that they had in that building before. And of course, the group of people that they were not letting back into the building at all was anybody over 50 years old. In that company, they were required to work from home because that's the group that's most seriously impacted by the coronavirus. And so we're going to see that stuff kind of on an ongoing basis. So, you know, just something that, again, good for remote workers, something that business owners that are competing in the world we live in today are going to have to switch their behavior from the sort of the frivolous luxury of having somebody that can drive into their office. Let's see. Some good comments in the chat window. What if a buyer doesn't leave a rating after you finished a job? You can, that's a good question. And there's a little bit of discretion that goes there. You do, you want to think about how the job went. Usually you can tell because you've been communicating with the client through the job. Were they happy with what you did, or were they not happy? And if they were happy with what you did, my inclination would be to send them a chat that would say something like, hey, a friendly reminder to leave feedback for this assignment, or whatever that particular network might call it. And then they will typically go in and leave the rating, the 4-star rating or the 5-star rating. The behavioral thing to know is that some people just never leave feedback. It's just how they're wired. And so it has nothing to do with you. It's just that they don't really see the importance in that. I've been working on the Upwork system for 20 years now, and I see how important that feedback is. And as a freelance buyer on the Upwork system, when I'm wearing that hat, I really rely on those ratings, and I give those ratings also because I know how it will be important to other potential buyers of services on there, and how it really helps up level the entire what would you call it, the economy of the Upwork system. Because generally you want great freelancers and great freelance buyers working in there, and you want the marginal ones not to be able to get work. You, as a freelance buyer, you don't want to hire somebody to do a job and then not have it done. So that's what's going on there. All righty. Yeah, I see some people talking about I think they're talking about the COVID test. And I just saw today where Mexico bought 32 million doses of the Russian vaccine for COVID. So that's, so if you're in Mexico, you can start rolling up your sleeve now. I think they said they would have it by the end of the month, which is interesting. There's a few funny memes floating around the network about the Russian virus, and I mean the vaccine. About not wanting to be the first one to try it out, but who knows? We live in a new world. All righty, we're about at the end of our hour here. Yes, go ahead, Pam.
I put my calendar link, but I can only do it on private chat with you. It won't.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So if you could put that on the others, if anyone wants to reach out to me, I'll be glad to give them a session to further discuss their issues.
Yeah, that's great. Pam does a great job of very popular resource on our Tuesday night calls. She'll sit down and have a what we call a focus conversation, and kind of walk through this process of the kind of things that you could do online. And Pam, I'm not seeing, did you send it in the general?
Well, it just says private chat.
Okay, I'm not seeing it. Let me, that might be in my Facebook chat. Let me go look at that.
It won't let me put a chat under.
Yeah.
I can read the other people's chats, but I don't have a way of addressing it.
Okay, let me just take a quick look at that. All right, I'm going to get it from another place because I know I haven't. And while I'm doing that, we'll just any questions that you have, other comments that you might have, just pop them in the chat window there while I dig up Pam's Calendly link. So yeah, and these sessions are are great. Pam, they're usually what 20 to 40 minutes.
Yeah, closer to 40.
Yeah.
I talk a
And,
lot.
okay. And yeah, and there's a lot of questions to ask,
Right.
and so that's goodness. And uh, I'm almost there. And you'll come away from that with a real good idea of what kind of skills that you can transfer online. There are skills that are very uh, top of mind, good to have. And usually, when we go through this process, we find lots of sort of hidden or buried skills. And that is a great benefit of that, because Pam is working with clients every day and helping them get onto various networks. Some networks are better than others, for that. Better ways, better work opportunity. Like for medical professionals, I really like justanswer.com. That's a very good one. And so here we go with Pam's calendar link. You can
And Greg, the answer to your question is yes, you can pay that monthly fee with PayPal. Upwork takes PayPal.
There we go. Are you seeing it in there, Pam?
Yes, it's there.
Okay.
It's there.
Great. And one of the great things in our Tuesday night system, when we end the webinar, everything in the chat window disappears. But here, when we end the webinar, it all stays on the page. But Pam allocates a few of those sessions every week. And and they usually go quickly. So if you want to have that conversation, just jump on that calendar link, and she'll and pick a time that works for you, and she'll go through that with you and help you quite a bit. One of the things that we have this thing called the focus wheel. I'm not sure I got it. Let me just see if I have it in my presentation. No, it's not quite here, so I can't show it to you. But I will show you one other thing. For those of you that are in our programs, we like to remind you that we have lots of support for you. And between our Tuesday night calls and our Friday conversations, there's lots of other stuff. We have chat on our webpage, and we have our private Facebook group is a great place to get answers. And of course, coaches like Pam that can offer you a free conversation around your skill set and what might work online. And then also in support. And we have chat now on our website at barefootconsultants.com. So feel free to trot over there and get into the chat there. So lots of good resource there. Alrighty. Let me just make sure. It looks like a couple comments popped in. They may have been my own. Greg, thanks for your comment about that. That you've gotten much more than your money's worth with us. We're really committed to helping people make this freelance transition. And yes, I like that's a great comment. It's like the university without the high price. So yes, exactly. Very good. All right. Well, we'll see everybody either Tuesday night or next Friday at noon. And have a great time freelancing between now and then. Thanks, Pam.
Bye, everyone.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Susan.